Moonlovers. Welcome to another episode of All Things Moon, Lunar Wisdom for Everyday Life with myself, Kelly Jones. And I've called this podcast Malefics versus Benefics. But, oh my goodness, could be another good title. So I've been saying, oh my goodness, frequently recently in a kind of a suitable replacement for all the swear words that want to come out of my mouth. So even though as an astrologer, I know the likelihoods of what is coming, we never really know until it arrives how it's going to present itself. And I do remember listening to my teacher, Adam Ellenbass, saying something about, he doesn't really do what I call pop astrology, doesn't really, focus on the mundane collective astrology, more about personal. But he did say that, if there was going to be a Mercury retrograde that was typical to all the memes and Instagram posts out there, then this was a Mercury retrograde like that. It's going to be like that. And oh, hasn't it been? So where have I been? What have I been doing? All of that is going to be in this podcast. I wanted to make a short one today, but I've got too much to tell you. So I apologise. It is probably going to be a fairly long one. So before I go any further, just to remember to ask you to press the like button, the subscribe button, to put some comments in the comments box and tell me and share your stories too. Let me know what has been happening for you during these retrogrades and all this other crazy stuff that we've got going on astrologically. This really is a week, that, even a year ago we were looking at thinking, oh my God, that week is going to be intense. And we are finally here. And I know I keep saying it, that it's going to calm down, but it certainly isn't. And this week is extraordinary. Also, if you would like to dive deeper into the actual astrological aspects, what they mean and how they might present themselves more personally to you, then click the link that will be in the show notes to join my online moon ceremony, which is tomorrow. That's Saturday night, UK time, 8 p.m. So that's August 9th, where we have a full moon in Aquarius happening. It's actually about 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, it's exact. But I'm holding a ceremony tomorrow evening. So where we will do, I'll update you on more in-depth information of all the aspects and the astrological alignments. And we do some meditation. I will share with you any herbs and crystals that might be supportive. We do a ritual, a full moon ritual together. We will do some journaling. I pull some oracle cards, and we will most definitely be meditating. That is for sure. So I have just got off of my yoga mat. I needed to be on my yoga mat for quite a long time this morning. I was supposed to be going to teach some classes at lunchtime today, but instead I have got the plumber coming. So I need to fit in this podcast before he arrives. Although they don't like to give you a time, do they? After lunchtime is what he said. But I'm just grateful he's going to fit us in. So what has been happening? So if you remember in my last podcast, it was this build up to my mum, who is over from Australia, her 80th surprise birthday party. And of course, during a Mercury retrograde, what happens? But it turns out that she had seen some messages on our cousin's WhatsApp group. And I was like, who put mum on the cousins group? And it turns out my brother did. At the beginning of last year, he put her on there because my auntie died and he didn't want her to feel left out when we were arranging everything and talking to each other. So we forgot that my mum was on there. So when we were doing all our sneaky plans with my cousins who were coming up from Herne Bay, coming up from Devon, coming over from the south of France, apparently she saw some messages. Now, I only knew that because her best friend told me after they'd been to the Isle of Wight for a weekend away. So I didn't say anything to my mum. My mum didn't say anything to me. We all went ahead and just went ahead with the secret plan. And all along, I thought my mum must be acting and pretending that she didn't know what was going on. But as it turns out, when we got to the party, she was completely amazed, completely surprised. And she said she didn't really remember reading the messages. And I said, oh, well, I suppose that's a joy of being 80, is that you've forgotten what happened yesterday. So anyway, joking aside, the party was fantastic. Everybody made it. No hold-ups or anything there. But the next day, my cousin, who had to drive back to the airport, back to Luton Airport as well, not even Stansted, which is local to us, when he got back to his car, he had a completely flat tyre, a puncture in the hire car on my brother's driveway. So that was his little Mercury retrograde moment. When my mum got back to her caravan, so my mum lives in Australia, but when she comes over here, she has a caravan near us here locally in Essex. So she has somewhere to stay and somewhere we can go and visit my mum while she's here. When she got back there, there was a major water leak in the middle of the carpet in the main bathroom of the caravan, which someone came and fixed. And then it leaked again. So then somebody else had to come along, and my brother had to go along and fix it again. Now, if you've been listening, you will know that me and my mum share the same birthday. We are both got 7th of July birthdays. We're both Cancerians. Well, roll on to yesterday or last night, and I went into the kitchen to start making some dinner. Tom was upstairs. He'd had a bath. I shouted up to him, when did you put water all over the floor in the kitchen? And he was like, I didn't put water all over the floor of the kitchen. And I went back into the kitchen and I realised that the water was dripping out of the ceiling. And so I went running upstairs and I said, did you overflow the bath? He said, no. He said, I think I might have known if I've overflown the bath. He'd emptied the bath, but there was still tons of water coming out of the kitchen ceiling. It was literally bowing. It was dripping out. There were cracks everywhere. And it turned out that I think the waste that empties the bath has broken. So we basically had to pull the side of the bath off. And the whole of the bath water is now under the floorboards coming through the kitchen ceiling. So I contacted two of plumbers that I know. One of them I got hold of on the phone, and we had to drill some holes in the ceiling, put buckets so to drain the water to stop the kitchen ceiling falling in. Yes. But also this week, my front door, which has been going for a while, literally got stuck shut and we couldn't get it open. We had to go out the back door, round the front and kick the door in. So I've had somebody round to quote repairing our front door. Now I've got a plumber coming round to fix the bath, and it looks like I'm going to have a plaster around to fix the kitchen ceiling. So and breathe and breathe. So what is going on astrologically? Because that's my life right now. So on the 7th of August, which was yesterday, Mars entered the sign of Libra. So Mars being in Libra, would urge what I would say, collaboration. Libra is all about teamwork and collaboration. Mars is all about competition. So let's look at, collaboration over competition, but, you know, trying to make it beautiful over being aggressive, those kind of subjects, those two things going on. But I have definitely felt that shift of Mars into a different sign. Libra also represents justice. So lots of people getting on the streets protesting this week. We have seen that out there. Tomorrow we have a full moon in Aquarius. And if I think, depending on what time you are, that might be tonight on the 8th of the 8th. So the 8th of the 8th is known out there in the social media world as Lionsgate portal. Now, I'll explain a bit more about that in a little while. I do feel as though the 8 Lionsgate portal is lovely for social media posts. I do think this is actually more a period of time, so we're not sort of like stuck with one day where we get through the portal. But that is today. And when I was on my yoga mat, I got my oracle cards out, and can you believe it? There was another card as well. So 2 cards came out. One was this one, which is the Oracle's Gift, which is all about basically trusting your intuition, your psychic side of you, to trust that, particularly if you need to be courageous and bold and make some big decisions. Yeah, but this is the card. Awakening the Lion. So this is all about awakening the lion within you, this card. That is the card that came out this morning. Can you believe it? On the day of the Lionsgate portal, 8/8, which is also my lovely stepdad's birthday today. So happy birthday to my stepdad, Chris, who is all by himself over in Australia. Well, he's not. My stepsisters are with him, taking him out for his birthday, but obviously my mum is here. So I made sure I sent him a lovely card and a gift to arrive today. So what does Waking the Lion card mean? So it's about boldness, the courage to move forward even without knowing the way, facing that which is difficult or painful. That is why we need that courage and the audacity to step into the unknown. So regardless of the outer conditions right now, you can't wait for your fear to lessen before you move forwards. In fact, despite the chaos and seeming disarray, you must be bold. Whatever your trepidation, act as if you have deep trust that all will be well. So that is the message from the Oracle today. And I wanted to share that first rather than at the end, in case you just can't manage to stay the length of this podcast today. So what else have we got? So, happy days. On the 11th of August, Mercury is stationing direct. Although the shadow phase of any retrograde is always a couple of weeks afterwards before we really feel the difference, and that direct motion feels like, whew, it's in the past and we can move forwards again. So Mercury is still in the sign of Leo, but after the 11th, we'll start to get back in some kind of flow, and all the miscommunications will, be untangled, if you like, and we'll be able to get our confidence back in how we express ourselves. Because if you've been struggling with that recently, that would be that Mercury in Leo. Leo is about expressing yourself, and Mercury is about communications, also about short distance travel and, technology and things like that going wrong. It's all about the mind, Mercury. And then something to look forward to is on Tuesday, Venus conjuncts Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. Oh, I'm so happy to have Venus and Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. Although I've got to say, if we go on the evidence of me and my mum, the Cancerians, that Jupiter has been expanding our water this week. Yes. So, Venus, please come in and give us some pleasure and some joy. Oh my goodness. And, and some money, please. So, Jupiter, if you could expand our Venus wealth, that would be amazing. So, Venus conjunct Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is all about nurturing, self love, the mother, home, all those things that make us feel secure and cozy at home, that feeling of home. So hopefully this Venus Jupiter together is going to expand that for us and, help us to magnetize some more cash to pay the plumber and more clients for astrology, please. And it will expand our connections. So with Mars making an opposition to Saturn on this full moon. Whew, it's hard to tap into those benefic energies. There is a grand trine going on, which is going to be going on for a long time. It really is one for the history books, and I will be diving into that much more in the online moon ceremony. But there are some good things going on. But with this Mars opposition to Saturn on a full moon in Aquarius, Saturn being the ruler of Aquarius, it really can feel a little intense, aggressive, doomy, gloomy, almost depressive, restrictive. There's that warlike energy of Mars. There's that sort of strict, restrictive, disciplinarian energy, and that reality check of Saturn kind of raining on the parade of this lovely Venus joining Jupiter energy that we've got. All of these retrogrades that we've got going on are all in fire and air signs. So apart from the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in the water sign of Cancer, we have no earth and everything else is fire and air. So if we were to only focus on these malefic energies of Mars and Saturn, and when I say malefic, none of it really is bad, but the malefic energy comes with more challenge. The benefic energy comes with in a more joyful way, in a more pleasurable way. Everything is for our highest good. Ultimately, it's what we do with it, how we respond to it, that matters. My favorite quote that I have as my screensaver, it's not what we're looking at, but what we see that matters. But we could be feeling stuck, just like my front door. Just going to pause for a moment because there's a delivery at the door. I'm back. Just had a box of cat litter delivered, which has actually taken about 3 days to deliver. So finally that's here. Anyway, I digress. Where was I? Mars opposite Saturn. So a full moon is an opposition in itself. So the moon is in Aquarius, the sun is in Leo. As that is happening, we have the Mars in Libra opposite Saturn in Aries. Mars is direct, just one of the only ones that is. But Saturn is retrograde. So Saturn's energy would be stronger right now. And if you've been following and listening and you know what's going on, you also know that Saturn is in a not exact, but almost conjunction, traveling along with Neptune behind him, going backwards too. So Neptune is also retrograde in the sign of Aries. And to add to the mix, we have Chiron going retrograde in Aries too, albeit that Chiron is at the other end of Aries. So Saturn and Neptune are at the beginning degrees at 1 degree of Aries, and then you've got Chiron at the other end, but they're all in that fire sign of Aries to do with self. Who am I? And just when we thought we were having a new beginning with Saturn and Neptune moving into the sign of Aries, they are going to be making their way back into the sign of Pisces. And in my last podcast, I did talk a lot about these retrogrades, so I'm not going to talk too much. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the malefic versus benefic. But what I really want to do is focus on the benefic. But so we've also, just to add to that as well, not to mention Mercury, who is still currently retrograde until the 11th, is in an opposition to Pluto, who is also retrograde in the sign of Aquarius, where we have the full moon. So the full moon's kind of sitting all by himself, actually, like swimming around in the middle of Aquarius at, I think, 16 degrees, if I remember right. Yeah, 16 degrees. But then, of course, we have this Lionsgate portal as well going on, and that Jupiter-Venus conjunction. So, you know, where we put our energy is very, very important. If we focus all our energy on all the terrible things that could happen with all these retrogrades and oppositions, then that's what we're more likely to see. You know, we only have the ability to take in around about 7 pieces of information at any one time. So we really want to make sure that we are consciously focusing our attention in a good direction rather than looking for the bad. Let's look for the good. Now, I am not encouraging, you know, that spiritual bypassing thing of all the darker, more challenging alignments. But as I've said many times, you know, they are guiding us. What are they guiding us to do? What are these more challenging aspects guiding us to feel, to discover, to uncover, to learn, to experience, that forms part of our personal and individual stories? And where is that leading us as a collective? You know, what is our responsibility in that story? Saturn. What action is Mars trying to instigate around the subjects of peace and justice? Libra. You know, the plot thickens in our personal and collective blockbuster movie. So Mars opposite Saturn, the Malefics are kind of doing a battle between them, you know, and an opposition really is that you're being pulled one way or the other. It's really not about somewhere in between. Because Mars is opposite the Saturn and Neptune, it's creating what's known as a kite aspect pattern. But basically, without going in depth into what all that means, Mars is at the apex of the kite. So if you think of a kite like this, Mars is at the apex. Mars is kind of like the one that's, it's like a pressure valve there. It's like built up pressure caused by Saturn, caused by Uranus in Gemini. I mean, Uranus is still going forwards as well until September. But we had that entrance of that dramatic entrance of Uranus into Gemini there. So we've got Uranus in Gemini. We've got Pluto in Aquarius, air. We've got Saturn, Neptune, fire, and we've got Mars, fire, up in the air sign of Libra. Yep. And this is all causing frustration, disappointment, anger, and it's like a pressure valve. And it's like last night, the bath. There was a bath load of water in my ceiling and it came through the cracks. Luckily, it didn't burst completely. Yep, because we took action straight away. But yeah, practicing patience, using Saturn for some self-discipline around that, practicing all of those things that we know. I am using my Strala yoga, I'm using meditation, I'm using journaling, I'm pulling the oracle cards. I've been for a treatment. I don't know if, I think maybe I told you about this in the last podcast where I popped a rib here under my boob. It made me feel so vulnerable for a while. So I went to this amazing place called Revive Health over at Charmer Village in Chelmsford with a wonderful therapist called CJ. And I went yesterday for some more zone therapy. And that everywhere in my body that is playing up at the moment is related to my digestive system, which is therefore related to my emotions. And she actually finds this point in the back of your skull, and that is sore in that zone 4 point. And after she's done all the treatment on my body, that point is no longer sore. My digestive system is starting to sort itself out, and this injury has pretty much gone. I'm slightly conscious. I'm not sure whether I'm just, being protective of my chest, as one would be. But yeah, doing the things that we know how to look after ourselves. Let's use that Venus and Jupiter in Cancer energy to expand our self-nurture, our self-care, our self-protection, to do what we need to feel emotionally secure. Personally, for me, having a look at my own chart, which you can do. So if you have got your chart done, you can get a free chart done on, so you can download a free birth chart on astro.com. I use whole sign houses, so try and click on the whole sign house system when you're doing that. If you're having difficulty working it out, how to do it, then just pop me a DM and I will send you the link straight to it with the instructions if you want. And obviously, if you want a birth chart reading, I can't do that for free. That has to, you have to pay me for that because, that's a lot of time and effort, but totally worth it to have a deeper understanding of your own chart. So looking at my own chart, I can see that Mars is hovering right over my natal Uranus, which means that Saturn, who, by the way, don't forget, is conjunct Neptune, is opposing my Uranus. Yep, so I've got Mars conjunct Uranus, Saturn and Neptune opposite my Uranus. So this opposition is showing up in the 11th house of friends and the 5th house of pleasure. Libra is associated with relationships, Aries with self. So with Uranus being so strongly associated with Aquarius, the secondary ruler, if you like, that is where the moon is illuminating a culmination point of tension for me personally. Yep. So keep watching this podcast to see how that all plays out. So the full moon in Aquarius, what does that mean? Aquarius is very much about liberation, freedom, community, genius, innovation, having a different mindset, very different individual way of thinking, very logical. It can also be very detached. So even though a full moon can be emotional, it's in a less emotional sign where Aquarius can detach from emotion and come across as quite cool or cold. And that is in an opposition to the warm-hearted, generous, self-expressive, creative Leo, where the sun is. So that's those opposition energies that we will be looking at tomorrow in the moon ceremony. But just a last little focus on this Jupiter-Venus conjunction. Venus conjunct Jupiter is like, it mirrors what this alignment looks like in the sky. So if you actually see this conjunction, it will look beautiful. It will be magnificent. It is the merging of those energies, the qualities of the benefic planets. So on a general level, it should be benevolent. It should be expansive. It should be a joyous alignment. It should be opportunity and beautiful and loving. But if you know your chart, it will help to guide you where you need to notice this showing up for you personally. So for me, it's showing up in the 8th house of shared resources. Where is that going to show up for me? Where is the opportunity? Where is the optimism? Where is the abundance in that alignment? I know that Jupiter and Venus is going to be conjunct and hovering over my natal sun and Mercury, because the sun and Mercury were in a conjunction at the moment I was born in the 8th house. So, personal growth, expansion, potential for transformation, particularly in the areas of shared resources, confronting fears, using that lion courage, that boldness to face the fears. And this has been a plotline movie story throughout my life. And it really is time to do something about that and not continue in the same cycle of things happening. Maybe it would be an opportunity for me to have a deeper self-understanding around, navigating challenging situations to do with joint resources, anywhere where we share money and, whether that be in a business capacity, but any relationship in joint finances and resources there for me. So also in how I communicate that as well. With Mercury conjunct the sun, the moment that I was born, there is a theme of difficulty with not just relationships where resources are shared, but to have that confidence and self-worth around communicating that. That really does need a boost of abundance and confidence. So, knowing where the house area of your chart and all the current planetary alignments are showing up for you personally will give you a greater insight in where the work needs to be done for you, where patience needs to be cultivated, and opportunity shouldn't be missed. Finally, just touching on that Lionsgate portal. Lionsgate portal is activated by the rising of the star Sirius. It happens same time every year, always towards the end of July, towards the middle of August. So it is a period of time. It's not just that one day. But because of that 8-8 numerology, and Sirius is considered to be our spiritual sun. So where the sun is like the essence of us, Sirius is like our spiritual soul essence. Astrologers, ancient astrologers saw it sort of as the rebirth of our spirit energy. And some cultures use the rising of Sirius to signify the start of a new year, actually. So the spiritual sun illuminates the truth of our soul. Yeah. But it's a gateway or a portal to a higher vibrational energy for us to use if we wish. Yeah. So, on that note, I've been going for 34 minutes now, so I'm going to leave it there. If you want to know more about all of this, then please do sign up for the online moon ceremony. If you can't join live, I'll just send you the recording. It's only £11.11. It's not a great deal of money. I give you an awful lot more than £11.11 worth, even in this podcast. So it's a whole hour and a half, that ceremony, where we do all of those lovely things. So yeah, sign up for that and I'll send you the recording if you can't make it at that time. And I really do hope that all of this energy is bringing you blessings and not curses, but just remember they are all for our highest good. Just look for what it is that you need to take from it, what you need to learn from it, and what eventually will come from that shift and change of circumstances, of energy flow. And with that, I will see you all next week. Please press the like, share, subscribe button. See you all next week.